Thank you very much for organizer to invite me here to have a talk. So as you know, I'm from the College of Environment and Natural Resources. And before I have a talk, I'd like to mention that I use my Vietnamese English. Okay, so if you don't understand me, it is very much understandable, right? So if you don't understand me, please just say, okay, now could you please repeat it? I'm very happy to say it again, and so that the talk can be more fruitful, more successful. Thank you. All right, so the content of my talk today is about the driving factor of the water resources changes. And actually, we need to distinguish different sources of water. We have rainwater, we have surface water, and we have groundwater as well. So actually here, today, I just would like to mention about the surface water resources, mainly. And then water is the main, the vital resources for human being, for livelihood, and also for natural resources surrounding them. So then in my talk, I also mentioned about the impacts of the changes of the water resources on the natural resources, socio-economic development, and livelihood of local people. And then, of course, we have quite some kind of like Q&A. And I hope you don't ask me too hard questions. Huh? All right. So the slide here with different cartoons, just to show you that you are sitting in the delta, which is quite rich, yeah, because we have rice, plenty of rice, and we are one of the greatest exporter in the world at a global scale, all right. And then we also have the agricultural products. Say here, I think we have shrimp, and then we have catfish as well, all right. And then we also have the food processing industry going quite okay, along with the agricultural development. And then we also have tourism developed quite okay. So actually you are now sitting in a very, we can say, wealthy delta. Huh? It's quite wealthy delta, right? And it's just to show you some figures about the trend of changes. Actually, we have the aquaculture production, rice production, annual rice yield, all of them keep going, right? So again, it is just to confirm what I said. We are living in the right place. Huh? And industry development is not that good as in comparison to others. But anyway, we also keep going, right? So then, why we have such the wealthy conditions? Look at the slide here. The content of the slide I just borrowed from others. It's not mine. But anyway, it is quite informative. And here we just talk about the floods, and we can say that the role of the flood water in the delta. First, it's about the salinizing farms, okay, and then the flood bring the sediment into the rice field, so that the soil can be a very good condition for rice, for agriculture in general, right? And then it also provide good environment for aquaculture and supply water for cities, for example. So actually, and next to that, we have figures about the goodness from the delta. So once again, do you agree with me that we are staying now in the wealthy delta? What do we know?
Because you say that the flood is going low, right?
I don't talk about that now. But all right, you picked a very right point. Okay, right, okay. But I just tried to tell you the numbers, right? And I only going okay, right? It's not too bad, okay? Believe me. But you are talking to something very right here. Fewer. the floods come, but less and less and less. So actually, with the water going down and down and down during the flood year, it's caused with a problem, right? And as I just discussed with John during the break, we are discussing about the vulnerability. When we have little flood, the farmers or local residents tend to believe that they are living in a safe place. However, according to some projection, in the future, we may have some big flood, even bigger than what we have ever experienced in the history. So then, what may happen to the local community, all right? So then, okay, as you don't agree with me, I will just try to confirm that you are right, okay? All right, so here we have the urban water pollution. We have different water-related issues in the Delta. We have urban water pollution. You may, because many of you will do the field survey in the city. So you will experience it yourself. All right. So in the urban, we have the large amount of people living in a certain area, so that the fluxes out of the human activities really huge, and then the pollution happen. All right. So we expect the rural could be better, right? But actually, it's not. Because in the rural area, the waterways are also very much polluted. The figures at the top, I borrow from the internet, right? But the figure in the bottom are the photos that I took back to last 2 weeks when I was in Assoc, one of the coastal provinces of the Delta. All right. So we have urban water pollution, we have rural water pollution. So what is next? What is next? What are the other problems related to water? We have the problem of too much and too little water. You know, we need to think about the supply and the demand. Whenever the supply equal to the demand, then we are okay. We are living some kind of like in heaven, right? But if not, we are in trouble. So we have flood, we have saline intrusion. Over here, when people talk about the drought, I tend to ask, what drought is it? Drought, sometimes we talk about no water. But actually we have a lot of water because we are surrounded by the East Sea and the West Sea of Vietnam. So if we don't have fresh water, we have saline water. But because we are going for rice in this area, so we cannot let the saline water in. Without saline water from the sea, without the upstream discharge from upstream, we have the drought, right? Another thing is the river itself is highly modified at the moment. We are building along the bank big houses. We are doing the sand mining. So all those things lead to the coastal and river bank erosion. All right. So okay, all those things are bad. So now we need to think about my question previously. If we are living in a healthy Delta, all right. So okay, in order to solve the problems, actually Vietnamese people don't sit calmly and wait. We do things. So for example, over here we make a dike to protect the fuel from the flood. We make the sluices to prevent the saline intrusion. So okay, actually here I say in need of hard measures, and then question mark. What are the next we must consider? Okay. So then, my question here is: we have too many problems related to water. What we need to, in order to support the Delta develop well, we must consider about the driving factors. Why it changed now, right? So in order to do it, we cannot just seek for the answer in the delta itself. Because the delta is just a part of a system, a component of a system. You may say it is a significant component. Anyway, it is just a component of a system. So now, here you are. This is the Mekong Basin, as you know, right? So we have the green turkey. We call it turkey, huh? The green turkey of the Mekong Basin. If we look closer, we have it. And then, when I search on the internet about the Mekong Basin, I have another map. So then, what happened? Those seem to be not very much similar, right? I asked the question, are the two figures the same? You can see it, it's not the same. Because actually, in the right cartoon, we miss the thin portion of the upstream, right? So, okay, the thin portion is of China territory. So then my question next, what do you expect to have? Okay, we should not talk, we should not touch to the very much sensitive issue at the moment. Though I just so sensitive, you know, when you are talking about dam, especially when you are in China, you are in trouble. So don't really touch on that at the moment, okay? So actually, what we expect to do is to have the whole basin in the left-hand cartoon rather than the lower Mekong Basin in the right cartoon. Yeah? Because if we have the whole basin system, we can manage it better. All right? So actually, then I just can't remember, in March 16. Okay, now my question is, how many countries in the Mekong Basin? Right. You know everything. Mr. Know everything. All right, so we have 6 countries, but because I mentioned like we have 4 in the lower Mekong Basin, so now if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we do have 16, right? So actually by 16, we start to develop the Lankan Mekong Cooperation platform. It is a good signal. At least it is the platform to bring guys from upstream and guys from downstream to be together. All right? And actually, by March this year, I was in Basin. And actually, it is also about this, because in Basin, by that time, we were discussing about future cooperation. What should we do together to sustain the development of the Basin? We don't say about the lower Mekong Basin, we don't say about the upper Mekong Basin, but by that time we are talking about how we help the basin develop sustainably. It's quite fantastic, isn't it? All right. So again, we hope we have the whole turkey. We don't cut the head off, right? Actually, the arrow just to show you the influences from China, because China is a big one. And the lower arrow is of Taiwan. Taiwan and China, they want to have influences on the basin, on the Mekong Basin in general, right? So I think it is quite okay, because we are there, we were talking together, and actually during the meeting, we were thinking about political free research. I don't talk about your governmental system over there or here. We don't talk about government. We just think about the natural resources, how to maintain it, how to support it. And then the research without water, You know, right after the meeting, when I were in Basin, right after that, a big group, I must say, a big group of scientists from CAS, Chinese Academy of Science, went directly to Thailand and to Laos to do field survey. So actually, research without borders is something we are promoting now. And so, what is next? You can list out all the good things, right? So, okay. Is it okay? You say no again. You always try to say no to me, huh?
I know the fact.
All right. So, okay. At least those are the words I mentioned here. And those are the words people often say out. But how do they work together? How do they cooperate? Is something different. So actually, the question mark I have here is for those issues. It is not really about what you are saying, but what are you doing, right? So it's something very much important. Okay, so the Mekong River. We can think of different things, different good things about the Mekong River. First, we say about the critical role to play in supporting aquatic ecosystems. Excellent. To be honest, I am not from the aquatic field, so I just read it loudly. But at least it is what you cannot say no, right? And then it provides good nutrients to sustain the inland and coastal fisheries. At this point, I would like to stop a bit to mention about this, because normally the environmental assessment in the Mekong, they pay great attention to the fishery in the river itself, river network, but they tend to forget the coastal part. Therefore, the environmental impact assessment somehow not very complete, and we do need to think about this when we read about those documents. All right, and maintain the morphology of rivers through the deposits of sand along riverbed. Okay, the river itself changed the morphology, but because it brings sediment, so it builds up the delta on the lower area, and it also helps to maintain the river network. So when we are talking about that, we need to think about the impacts of what you just mentioned about the dams. Because the dams happen, it stops the natural flows of the sediment. I say stop the natural flow. I don't say stop the flow. It stops the natural flows of the sediment. So they change the morphology of the river, and it changed the delta itself. Okay? And then, most importantly, to build and replenish the mega deltas that dominate the Southeast and East Asia. Okay, on the thing. Actually, over here, I'm going to show you a cartoon. Wait. I just want to explain it first. How can I stop it? No. The color is just to show you the amount of sediment from a global river network floods out to the sea. So you can see that in the Asia, we provide very good nutrient and sediment out to the coast, out to the sea. It is fantastic. So then when you are talking about the impacts, whatever it is, to stop the sediment from upstream down to the coast, it is a disaster. We don't need to talk about Vietnam, we don't need to talk about Cambodia, but anyway, you destroy the sea, right, environment. Okay, so we are talking about sediment routed out from the Mekong to the sea, right, on those things are right. But then, the sediment also the river also brings something else. And the figure here just to show you about the trash exported from the different river system into the sea. It's just like sediment, yeah? Material anyway. Water, the river bring material from the river and from the material along the river network to the sea. So sediment is a good thing, but then the trash is something else. And we need to consider about that. Okay? So some physical figure about the Mekong Delta, Mekong River. You know about this, fine. So, what to expect along such the long river system? What do you expect to see along such the long river and, I must say, complex river network? Actually, if you look at the elevation, it ranges from above 5,000 meters above mean sea level to about mean sea level. 5,000 meters different, okay? And then the temperature also change from up there to down here, all right? So then, also about the water. We have the water availability different from one place to another place. And then next to that is water issues. And it changed from one place to another place. It's something must be considered very clearly in our thinking, because otherwise we just assume that we have a water problem in the delta. It's just exactly like what we have in the Taipei. No way. It's completely different, and we need to consider about that. And just to let you know in more detail about this, I just give example of the rainfall, for example. Like the rainfall high from the east and low in the west, high in the north and low in the south, all right? So actually, we have over here, I just to show you the monthly average rainfall, no? Rainfall in a certain location along the delta and along the Mekong. And actually in the lower cartoon, you can see that in different locations along the river, we have different hydrograph, annual hydrograph. So the closer to the north, the lower the discharge is very much naturally accepted, and lower to the south where we have going downstream, so the higher the discharge is, okay? So I just would like to make use of this cartoon to discuss with you some more thing, all right? So actually, the lower cartoon, just to show you the flood in 2000, it is the busy line with two peaks, all right? And then the quite smoother lines, it is the average discharge from 24 to 23. And actually, what do you see? What can you get out of the lower cartoon? Okay, and then I read one scientific paper. One scientific paper. It says the main hydropower dams along the Mekong River did not enter the annual discharge entering the delta. And then I have a question, Mark.
Is it the Finnish company or something like that who do the EIA?
No, okay, first I need to mention that it is scientific paper published in the famous journal, right? And of course, it is from China.
Yeah, I know. And then the Finnish company, they are now in court. Because they did some of the EIA that they are known. There's a lot of problems.
Okay, so this one is right. The sentence here is right. If you say it wrong, you are in trouble, because it is published in a famous journal.
Yeah, I'm a scientist. I'm not a politician. So.
Right. Okay. No, but okay. You need to look at the words here, and you must accept it correct. because it says, did not enter the annual discharge entering the delta. The total annual discharge, just completely fine. Because if you close the dams for this month and you release it next month, and you close again another month and you release it later, still the total amount is there.
What about in winter and low season? The water discharge is same in the low season?
It's, of course, different, but I mean, in total, like if we calculate for a year, like from January to December, and then January to another December, it's quite similar. But actually, you are right, because if you look at the cartoon, the bottom cartoon, you can see the water fluctuates like this, and the livelihood of local people along the river depends on the fluctuation. And actually, the smoother line are not wrong. It's not wrong, sorry. The smoother line is not wrong. But how to use it? So actually, in my understanding, they abuse the average number or the total number. They abuse it. And no one can say it's wrong because I use the average number. I use the total number. And it's just very wrong. Right? And actually, if you look at this, like scientists, I don't want to argue with you now, but if with normal people, when they read this one, they say, okay, fine. Upstream dams doesn't bring any negative impacts because of this sentence. Right? Of course, scientists, yes, please, I know what you're thinking. But normal people. So actually, scientists, how many percent of scientists in the total population? Quite little. So this one will give a huge impact to society. And if we don't try to improve the understanding of local people, of local residents, and if scientists like yourself don't say it out, then we are in trouble. Right? So we need to think more about that. And it is just a figure to show you about the mainstream hydropower dams. The mainstream hydropower dams just come to us recently, because in the past we do have the hydropower dams along the tributaries. I'm talking about lower Mekong Basin. The upper Mekong Basin, they do have the mainstream hydropower dams for years, decades already. But for the lower Mekong Basin, we just have it recently. And it's quite scary, right? So, okay. What else can you think of apart from what I just described before? No, in my content, I say no. Huh? Okay, yes, I will do it later. All right. So actually, so far, because this talk about the water resources in the delta. And so far, I just mentioned about the external factors. What are the internal ones? The things happen directly in the delta. Okay? Yeah, okay, right. So I'm happy that you agree with me. So in the delta, we have different threats. First, as I mentioned above, upstream development, all together of hydropowers, of urbanization, industrialization, intensification of agriculture, forest cut, blah, blah, blah. So this is upstream development, okay? And then it's about the sea level rise, keep rising. So those cause the changes entering the delta. But then the development in the delta itself also causes changes. And we need to think about that very much carefully. We have the lack of sediment. I do talk about the lack of sediment from upstream. Hydropower dams, they stop the sediment from upstream down here. Actually, one of the paper we are about to publish with the UK scientists, we are doing the analysis to say about the changes of the sediment fluxes down to the sea. And it's quite serious. I cannot tell the number at the moment, but you will see the paper soon. Okay, but it is about the upstream impact. In the delta, what happened? We have the dike construction. In order to go for agriculture, first we need a good soil. So then we make canal to flush out all the toxics. Okay, and then we go for one rise, and then we think it's not enough, so we go for two rise, and then it's not really enough. We want to go for three rise. In some other years, we think we have 10 crops per 3 years. You know, really, really intensive. But because of the food security policy, we want to go for rice and rice and rice. So we must stop the water get into the rice field. So then we have the dike system to protect the rice field the whole year round. You can have the low dike to protect the rice field for the low flood only. But then we need to have more rice and rice, so we want to the 100 dike. So we stop the water. It's okay. We did. You know, human beings are great. We can do everything. So we stop the water. But then, when you stop the water, you stop the sediment. So when you stop the sediment, you need to use more fertilizer. And when you just go for rice and rice and rice and rice and rice like this, so the pests happen. So actually, we have the problem with the pests, with the soil fertility, and then the agricultural production and the yield need to be very much considered. All right. And then we are talking about land subsidence. Actually, it is back to Alex's question about groundwater use. But it's not about groundwater use now, but at least I touched about the land subsidence. In the figure here, just to show you some problems considered to be affected by the land subsidence. What do you think? Sorry? You're asking about the causes? No. What do you think of the figure here? The cartoon here. So actually, it is a question.
Is it one of the dike, you say?
No, it is the bridge. No. So actually, it is somehow, because, you know, it is from the newspaper. They use it to say about land subsidence. So my question is it the real subsidence? Or just because of the heavy of your construction, you call the local subsidence? It's not what we are talking about, the delta scale subsidence. Right? So once again, it is something we need to consider about the news, the media. If you make something wrong publicly, it is not very nice. Right? So it is something I would also like to say here, because we need to let the public know the truth, but not really to lead them to what you want them to hear. And it is just what they want the people to hear. However, I don't say land subsidence doesn't happen, because groundwater has been used seriously, intensively over years, since 2000 or late 1990s to now. So they use groundwater for rice previously. Now it is not allowable anymore, but they still use it for upland crop. They use it for irrigating the fruit garden, etc., etc. So actually, you see over here, in one of the results of our Rise and Fall project, we just try to prove that the groundwater has decreased over years. And actually, the groundwater level decrease going down. We have the problem with the subsidence. Okay, so I touched the point that you mentioned, right? Okay, right. So, but the point is, here, when you are talking about groundwater and you are talking about subsidence, you know, from the cartoon here, you see that where you are sitting at the moment, we are subsiding, right? It's just over there, right? Do you see that? Do you feel that we are subsiding? All right, thank you. It is another problem because it is kind of like the unseen problem. And people don't really recognize it. And it is something we scientists must try to help them to prove it. All right? Bank erosion. All right? Again, another cartoon. I hope it works. All right, it happened along the Bazak River back to last year. And last year when Nicholas, the supervisor of Maya, came here, we were visiting this area just to see the kind of like the, you see, it's good, the house is going down. It's quite serious. And now, if you are there, you can see the leftover. All right? So bank erosion is something important, but it is not about bank erosion only, the river bank only, but we are talking about the coastal bank as well. The coastal bank erosion leading to the loss of mangrove forest, leading to the loss of aquacultural farm, and those are serious, right? So, what happened after this? We have a saline intrusion. Back to the last 16. The darker the color in the map are just to show you the areas affected by saline intrusion. Okay? And you can see some kind of like we say the funny, but it's not funny at all. Cartoon to show you the impacts of the saline intrusion. All right? And then we have groundwater pumping. Because you don't have, okay, now just imagine you are local people, okay? You don't have fresh water from surface water. What you do? You can just sit down calmly, right? Sit down like this and wait for 10 days when you have fresh water? No way. You must do something. And then there is something must be done. Groundwater pumping. You cannot just stop them by, if you don't provide them any other ways, it is the way they must do. Otherwise, they will die, right? So, groundwater pumping, leading to land subsidence, right? And then leading to the flooding. Previously, when we are talking about flood, we are talking about the upstream part of the delta, An Giang, Đồng Tháp. But now, when you're talking about flood, you need to talk about the coastal area as well. Okay? So the cartoon here just to illustrate what I just said before. We have sea level rise, we have subsidence, and so what I call the dual impacts. Two impacts together. And if you look at this is just the figure for the global scale. So the sea level rise is about maximum 10 millimeters per year. The subsidence could be about 100 millimeters per year. The sea level rise, you don't see the sea level rise, but you can feel it because you see the water coming. But the subsidence, as we discussed before, is invisible. But the invisible part is even greater and have greater impacts than the visible one. So actually it is very scary. It leads to the saline intrusion, leads to the tide-driven flooded, infrastructure damages, etc., etc., etc. You can say more and more and more, right? Okay. So here, I just got to, apart from what I said before, described before, there are some other issues related to the delta. First, it's about the infrastructure. Over here, I'm talking about the hydraulic infrastructure developed in the Mekong River, and we think that have great impacts on the natural hydrological regimes. Because when you build a dike, you stop the river getting into the floodplain. So the water in the level in the river keep going and going and going. Right? So actually, we have a great impact on the hydrological regime, and then it increases the risk of future conflicts among the region. Because if you build the dike along An Giang province, water cannot eat there. So the water cannot just disappear, right? It must go downstream. So we have the flood in the area, in the middle part of the delta or the coastal part. The bad thing is, people living upstream, they know how to deal with the flood. The people in the middle part and the lower part, they don't have experiences. So actually, when you shift the flood from upstream to downstream, you shift the problems with greater impacts, with greater scale. All right? And then when you mark the dike to protect the rice field, as I discussed before, we have soil degradation, we have the environmental pollution, we have natural resources degradation in general. So then, if you want to go for rice, you must go for fertilizer, you must go for pesticide, you must go for herbicide. Where are the money come from? If you are the poor farmer. So then, what should they do? Should they just sell the land, or they just let the land used by others? So actually, the greater gaps between the poor and the rich turn to be bigger and bigger. This is quite something important that has not been touched very in details so far. But this is the finding we have with the research and together with University of Southampton. It is quite important. And climate change in combination with the river sediment leading to the loss of rice yield. And just before last year, food security was still the very first policy in the Delta. Luckily, it's not at the moment. But the loss of rice yield due to the lack of sediment, due to the changes of climate, causing the problem to the Delta itself. And next, I'm talking about another thing. And later on in the discussion, don't please ask me about this, because it's not my field. But at least it is something I think I must say, because it is quite important. Migration. This is the work I do together with the PhD student from Southampton. We try to understand about the migration causing by the climate change. I don't want to use the word climate change because it's a bit too big. But actually we consider about the water resources changes. And one of the main findings is water resource changes leading to the migration. And that's it. And it's really does it, don't ask me more. Okay. So strategies for adaptation. What should we do? As you know, I wonder if I have time enough. Okay. Well, actually, the delta is quite complicated in terms of hydrology. So if you want to adapt to water resources, you really need to understand it zones of the delta. For example, like in the flood zones that I mentioned before, in An Giang, in Dong Thap, we have different hard measures. Say we build dike, we build sluices, we build canal network to route the flood out of the delta. Those are done. Those were done actually. So also just to provide you some basic understanding about the hard measure in Vietnam. We have a full dike system and the semi-dike system. Okay. I'm sorry, it is some special feature of the Vietnamese Mekong Delta. It's not about the Red River Delta, whatever. So with the full dike system is to protect the rice field the whole year round. And then the semi-dike system is to protect the rice field during the peak, the first peak only. As you see back to the slides before, we have two peaks, one's lower and one's higher. So the semi-dike is just to protect the rice field from the low peak only. And after that, water can get in the rice field. So the left cartoon just to show you about the dike system, full dike system. When I took the photo here, outside of the dike, the water level was about the same level of the top of the dike. But inside that, it's just dry land. And the dike is about 3 meters above the natural land surface. Okay? And the right-hand cartoon, just to illustrate from the space, you can see that the surrounding environment are water. And then the inside, I don't think you see it clear, but at least you can see different color. Over here, just one color, water. And then the inside is different color. It's just to show you different land cover, different land use. So it means that this is the full dike system. All right? And how it developed in the delta. In 2000, those figures I just borrowed from someone else. It's not mine. Yeah? So in 2000, you see, everywhere flooded. So actually, those are either not protected by any dike or protected by semi-dike. All right, in 2000, remember. And then 2008, the left, we have water. The right, we have no water. It means during the flood season, they go for rice in the right-hand side. Yeah? And then next, we have this one. Just rice. And when I show this cartoon, some guys just tell me that you play a trick. You know why? Because they think I took the photo during the dry season. But actually, I don't play the trick. Observe carefully at the back. You see water still there. Right? You see water at the back. So actually, this is just to show you about the development of the full dike system in the delta. It is just to fulfill the food policy, for food security policy. All right. And the cartoon here just to show you about to demonstrate the impact of the dike system. Okay, now it is just another one I took back to I think 10 months ago, less than a year. To show you one side is the flooding, one side is dry. Okay, so this is the full dike system, and actually the full dike system is converted into the transportation system. Okay, so then remember this: we have the multifunctional infrastructure. And one of the advices from some other scientists, they say no. When you build a dike, you build infrastructure for the water only. For the water, please just use it for water only. Don't use it for other purposes. I said it's a big waste. Because if you would build a dike big like this and you don't use it for transportation, big waste. I was thinking about that, and then when I was thinking about how to restore the dike. Because if nowadays they are not talking about the food security anymore, so then somehow like we need to destroy the dike. Okay, fine, you can destroy it. But please remain the transportation system. So how do you do it? You see, it is the big problems in the Delta at the moment. So this is just as I'm running out of time, so I just briefly introduce you about the full dike system and the semi-dike system. And of course, the coin has two sides. So each of the system has its own positive, negative impacts, the pros and cons of its infrastructure. For example, thanks to the full dike system, we have the rice just like this. I took this photo. I did not borrow it. I took this photo during the flood season. And actually, the negative side could be found. Also, some by myself, some also borrow. I don't say I steal, I borrow it. And also semi-dike, we also have good and bad, right? The hard measures for the coastal part, we also have the dike, sluice gates, pumping stations, blah, blah, blah. However, in order to do it, in order to have it, we need to consider about the environmental impact assessment, and we need to consider about the social impact assessment. Normally, we are talking a lot about environmental impact assessment. We say, you know, with the dike, with the sluices, the water quality turned to be worse. Fine, and we stop at that. However, if we try to go further than the natural resources degradation, we need to think about the social impact as well. You see, it is one of the photo, the cartoon that I showed you before about the impacts of the dike system. And non-structure or the soft measures could be about the changes of the crops, the changes of the cropping calendar, or the changes from the intensive farming system into the mixed integrated farming system. So all those things could be used to enhance the livelihood of local people. And actually, if you are thinking about the mixed or integrated farming system, people consider it as the less vulnerable system in the context of climate change. All right? So actually, now, what should we go for? We should go for hard measure, or we should go for soft measure, or non-structural measure? Please advise.
Not easy to say.
Scientists, yes. Yes. Scientists, very careful. Especially depends on the time scale, not easy to say. All right, one of the paper we, together with Professor Trung here, we published, just say, we cannot say we use this or that type of hard measures only. We need to combine them all together. Also, according to the time scale, according to the problems you face. For example, like if a community living in the flood vulnerable area, and you say, no, I don't want you to build a dike here, just leave me alone, then you'll be in trouble. We need a hard measure over there to protect local people. So actually, the combination is something important, and we need to consider how to combine them all together. However, unfortunately, at the moment, like some guys, they tend to go for hard measure. Some guys, they tend to go for short measures. And a short measure would say bad thing about hard measure guys, and then another way around. So actually, those are not the things that I think we should go for. We should think of the integration. And one of the things we need to think about is Vietnam is one of the countries to export rice for the global market. It has huge impact at the global scale, actually. If you are thinking about Syria, right? Syria is much away from UK and Europe. But actually, one of the reasons for UK to divorce from EU is also about Syria. Right? So actually now we don't talk about a local location. We are talking about a global scale, right? And as I would like, as analysis want me to discuss a bit more about the project that I'm going to do with the UK scientist. It is not approved yet. We are next week I will go to Thailand to finalize the proposal with them and hope we can get the project. So actually it is about the citizen science, and over here we are talking about pupil, elementary pupil. You can educate student, you can educate the youngster, the student, you can educate even scientists, but somehow those knowledge you provided to them is here, not out there, because it's just their knowledge. It's not really much about their living style. So then we are thinking, okay, now why don't we change the behaviors, the thinking, the mindset of the youngster? And we are thinking about having some impacts on the elementary pupil. So next week I will go to Thailand to have a meeting with them, and so we have the School of Education and Social Sciences. We have the Environmental Institute in Hull, and then in Vietnam, in CGU we have our college and the College of Education. So actually I like this project because it is kind of like one of the very few projects trying to combine those aspects, and we try to make it in a complete way. So please pray for me to have the project, because I'm not sure if I have project or not. But anyway, it is just to show you about another one that I think it is quite good to consider about. All right, thank you very much. I am in the right time.